Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome back to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. Do not be fooled by the fancy name. It's just me and some friends talking about baseball cards. And today, the baseball cards we're going to talk about are those of the great Ted Williams. It took me 30 episodes to get to Ted Williams, but I can say from the very outset of this channel, this show with Ted and this particular guest, my super collector friend Matt, was one of the people that I'd thought about from the very beginning. And if you watch my intro, you'll see that that's actually true. So Ted Williams, we could start with. Let me go back to the slides here. Just give me a sec. There we go. So Ted, as you can see from this baseball reference, he was born in San Diego, California. His mother was a Mexican American, so Ted is actually half Latin, something that was sort of hidden, I guess, or not really talked about very much until later years when Ted took ownership of that and used it in a very positive way. But he spent his time in San Diego playing a lot of baseball in the playgrounds. Ultimately, was signed out of high school and played his first year for the San Diego Padres, a minor league team in San Diego, obviously, as a 17-year-old. Played a second year with the Padres and was so good that he was signed by the Boston Red Sox. He went to the Red Sox, I guess what would be considered now their AAA team, the Minneapolis Millers, and in his 1 year in minor leagues, won the Triple Crown. So Ted went up to the Red Sox as a touted rookie in 1939. And as you can see from the numbers, he had quite a rookie year. I think he finished, I'm trying to see the number there, fourth in MVP voting, but he won the RBI title and batted .327. So as a 20-year-old rookie in 1939, Ted Williams was already a star. And so his pre-war period, there's 4 seasons where he finishes twice in the MVP voting. Once, of course, 1941, he finished twice in a season where he batted .406. But the writers had already begun to have problems with Ted, and he was left off a ballot, and DiMaggio ended up winning the MVP that year. In 1942, Ted did not go into the armed services, as many players did, because he was trying to make enough money to pay for his mother's new home. And so after 1942, he enlisted and became a fighter pilot flyer. Did not fly any missions in World War II, but we'll get to him flying missions later on. When he came back in 1946, he had such a great year that he won the MVP. Red Sox made it to the World Series. And although Ted did not perform well in the World Series, in part because he was injured, he was off and running. He won the Triple Crown in 1947 and again finished second in the MVP voting. And then in 1949, he won another MVP, 43 home runs, 159 RBIs, batted .343. I think Ted was the on-base percentage leader in the entire major leagues for something like half of the years of his career, maybe even more than that. But you can see all the black ink on his page here. It's pretty wild, his accomplishments as a hitter. Over 500 home runs, has the all-time leading on-base percentage in Major League Baseball history. Career batting average of .344 is 5th all-time of qualifying batters. Just an absolutely phenomenal accomplishment. As a 38-year-old, he batted .388. As a 39-year-old, he won the batting title. Had a down year as a 40-year-old in '59. Came back at 60, announced it was his final season, and then proceeded to have a pretty good season. Of course, famously home run on his last at bat in the major leagues. He hung around the Red Sox for a few years after that. Was elected to the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. Gave a really excellent speech in his Hall of Fame induction, where he talked about the need for the Hall of Fame to consider inducting players from the Negro Leagues, and he had an effect there, and now we see that has actually occurred. Ted did go on to manage for the Washington Senators for, I believe it was 3 seasons in Washington and 1 season in Texas, and then he left after Texas. He actually was a pretty good manager. You see, his first year with the Senators, he had quite a good season there with a limited amount of talent. For the rest of his life, he lived sort of as a Red Sox spring training instructor and liked to fish, so he did a lot of fishing. And of course, the famous scene at the 1999 All-Star game at Fenway Park, where Ted was surrounded by hundreds of players and finally given his due. But this is a baseball show, so let's start talking. I'm sorry, a baseball card show. So let's start talking about some baseball cards. This is my Ted Williams collection. I can say that it is the entire Topps run of Ted Williams. You can see he had 1954. They gave him the first card in the set and the last card in the set. 1955, you see the vertical card there. 56, he actually has 256 cards if you count the gray back and the white back, but I just got one, and it's a classic 56 card. 57, he is again number 1 in the set. There's a classic pose in Yankee Stadium. And 58, he is again number 1 in the set. After 58, Ted signed with Fleer, and we'll talk about with our guest that he has a complete set of Ted Williams cards for the 1959 Fleer. Upper left is the one that I am most proud of, which is the 1954 Bowman. The story with this card is that Ted did not sign with Bowman. They printed the card anyway, and so after a short run of cards, they had to pull it. And this card was replaced in the set with a Jimmy Pearsall card. I believe this is number 66. Yeah, 66. So this is kind of a super short print, and happy to have it in an SGC4. So we're going to see a lot more Ted Williams cards coming up with my guest. Matt is someone who I've met on Twitter, and ultimately we've attended a whole bunch of card shows together. Hofstra, multiple times in Philly, and even one time down in the Chantilly show in Virginia. Matt is the one of the top Ted Williams collectors out there, and a good friend of mine, and I'm happy to have him on the show. So let's bring him on. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Hey, Dan, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning. So we're finally doing the Ted Williams show. I know you had you moved, so it was a little bit difficult for you to do it in the last few months. But now you're settled in, and happy to have you. So how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. Weather's pretty good so far. And yeah, the move was about 7 weeks ago and kind of uprooted myself to the south and to Charlotte, and just getting acclimated down here.
Awesome. So I always ask my guests about your history in the card collecting community. I'm assuming you started off as a kid and took it from there, but why don't you tell us in your own words your card collecting history?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a lot like everyone else. Started as a kid. I was, played sports, and baseball was my favorite sport. Started, and my first year was 1987 with the border of the Topps, which is the famous, borders.
Yeah, the wood.
Um,
Yeah, the fake wood.
yeah. And then it kind of just took off from there. My parents would, take me to the card store. We had a couple that were, within, a close proximity to my house. I'd buy packs, and, usually for Christmas, I'd get a box or two, and, started from 87 building sets, and, then other, products started coming in with, Donruss and Fleer. So I pretty much collected sets, and traded with cards. And early, teenage year, I guess, I was 10, 11, 12, and probably 13. We had a close farmer's market, and my buddies and I would ride our bikes up there and typically spend Saturdays and Sundays up there with a couple of guys. And now I look back on it and think about all the sun exposure on some of those cards, that we didn't know anything about. But it
Yeah.
was, that's kind of what my weekends looked like. I was either playing baseball or I was up at the farmer's market, trading, buying, selling. Pretty much collected all the way up, through high school. Um, and then, once college started, I drifted off. I've always been in autographs, so I would go to. I ended up going to the 2003 National in Atlantic City, and I just went to get autographs. I didn't even look at any cards. I mean, I walked around, but
That's funny. I kind of did the same thing with Westchester. I went up there to get 1970 set that I had completed to get autographed, and I'll do a show on it eventually. I've shown a lot of the cards thus far, but I remember the first time I went in there, I just got autographs. I didn't even look at cards. I just left.
Mhm.
It's bizarre.
Yeah,
And now I
yeah,
go
it
up
was
there and I'm
interesting.
like every single table of
Well, yeah,
vintage.
because I had gone to the year prior. There was a big show in Atlantic City where it was a lot of the 3,000 strikeout guys. So
Oh, okay.
Gibson was there, um, Clemens, I think it was, Gaylord Perry, I think he was 3,000, Steve Carlton. So I went to that, and I would still go to shows, but I wouldn't just buy cards. I just wasn't. I would buy a pack here and there just to kind of rip something,
Yeah.
but yeah, it
So
was. Go
So
ahead.
so the next question is why Ted Williams, and I think you have a pretty good answer for this one. But other than like a guy like me, I'm not a Ted Williams super collector. You see, I have cards because he's a great baseball player, and I like to do that with a little bit. But why in particular? And we'll see your collection shortly. But why Ted?
Um, I'm a huge Red Sox fan. Growing up in Delaware, I had a choice of the Orioles or the Phillies, and both really weren't any good at that time. But I was able to see the Red Sox on TV with the Orioles, and um, actually Wade Boggs was my favorite player growing up. And once he hit the Yankees, it was over for them. Uh, Unfortunately, still love Wade Boggs. Just I don't think I will ever get over him going to the Yankees and winning a title there.
Well, then
Uh,
Rod. So you had to deal with that one
yeah,
later in life.
yeah. So and then growing up and playing sports, I was in baseball. I was always a really good hitter. My glove was pretty good, but hitting was my specialty, and I needed another player to root for in the mid '90s, and I just started reading some stuff about Ted Williams, and he's Ted Williams. I knew about him, but I didn't know as much.
Right.
So I just kind of like started to follow, some of the stuff with the Red Sox a little bit closer with Ted Williams, and he was getting up there in age, and I just was just enamored by the way his approach to hitting, and just kind of stuck with that. And it's interesting, is I there's other players throughout the Red Sox history that have come along, Big Papi and Pedro, and they're still up there. But Ted's my guy. I just always um, appreciated my collection. When I look at it, and he just was. I could translate to some of this stuff in life as well.
Let's take a look at that collection. You sent me the money shot, and I'm about to show. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
this happens. This happens every week on the show. I'll have like 5 or 6 cards, and I'm thinking, "Oh, this looks pretty good." And then I'll pull up the Supercollector collection. I'll be like, "Oh well, yeah. I guess I guess I don't have much going on." So we'll get to them later on. But you can see the upper left. There's the 1939 play ball cards. Um, so I'm fascinated by the fact that Ted, who had all kinds of issues with card companies in the 50s, is in all three of the play ball sets. Like I guess he was young at that point and
Mhm.
signed up. Do you know, is there any reason why Ted is so well represented in the play ball set, but not very well in the 50s?
I don't know. I mean, the only thing I, can probably think of is he was young, rookie, and he probably made some money from it. and they had approached him, and they knew that he was with the Boston Red Sox. They had they didn't have anybody that lived up to the Babe Ruth aura, and then Ted came along, and you had mentioned that he had won. He had been a really great hitter, and coming up, so probably had something to do with it, but I am not sure.
Yeah, well, when I was reading, it was that he'd won the Triple Crown as a what was then the top, the Minneapolis Millers, a team that Yastrzemski later played for, but
Mhm.
he had won the Triple Crown, and it was so expected that he was going to be on the Red Sox. I mean, it was like a foregone conclusion. So I guess at play ball in '39 knew he was going to be the Red Sox left fielder, or actually in his rookie year he was a right fielder. But so they had enough knowledge of him in advance to be able to put him in the set. Um, and then I guess you got the double play cards there.
Yeah, the two of them. One's with Cronin, I think it is.
Yeah, he has one with Cronin, a card that I
And then
believe
the
we
other
have
one
on
was
here.
the other one. Where is it?
The other one is the batting one. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know who the other player is on that.
yeah. No, Cronin, and it's Cronin's the batting one. Tabor
Cronin.
is the other one. Jim Tabor.
Okay, and then cards. A couple of cards. I don't know. Is that a Propagandist Montiel in there?
Yeah, I got
Wow,
lucky with that one. Yeah, it was.
you must have paid up for that, boy. I'll tell you.
Yes, I did. I actually found that on Net 54.
Nice.
I had been looking for that card for years, and a couple would pop up here or there, and I just wasn't able to get them. So that one was posted. I bought it raw, knowing that there's potential of an authentic or something coming back.
Yep.
But I ended up getting a PSA 1, which I believe the pop on that with PSA is around 20.
Wow.
Most of them are either authentic or a 1. I think the
So you
highest grade is a
you
3.
handled that, right? Because
Yeah.
I just recently submitted this week actually to SGC a Propagandist Montiel card, and I held one for the first time because my others are came to me slab, and it literally is paper. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
so
I
I can
bought
see.
that one and Dom DiMaggio at the same time. The Dom came back a PSA 2, which I think is the tied for the highest grade, or there was one higher grade for that one. To
Yeah,
get
you
a
very
2 in
rarely
that
see.
is really tough because those were put into books. So a lot of them are peeled off. And even on this TED, there I think is like you could see there's kind of like a little bit of
Yeah, let me get you
sticky
up a little
stuff.
bit there.
There it is, like some sticky stuff right there.
Oh yeah. I guess
So and most of them have that
yeah. So the far right is that the long one is the 1955. What do they call? Are they called double
double
play?
headers,
Double
double
header.
header. Yeah,
Yeah, the double header. That's another one that I know is tough to find.
yeah, and they actually have two. There's one that has there's one that doesn't have the bend in it, the fold.
Oh, really?
Um,
Oh, I didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah, there are ones out there. This one does, but it's pretty clean. It's a 5. Um,
Who's the other player?
Hal Smith.
Okay, he was a Red
So
Sox.
yeah, so there's ones out there that are no bend, but those are really tough to come by.
And then I guess the upper right is like the Italian card. What is it? I don't remember the name of it.
It's the yeah, I got it right here. And actually, I got that off Hunter. That's the Liebig.
Liebig. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, he Hunter, who has been a guest on this show, as you
yeah,
might have guessed, the Stan Musial show was with Hunter. I know he got a ton of those, not a ton of those. He got a bunch of those raw and graded them, and they all graded pretty high. What's the grade on that one?
that one's a 7.
7. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this is I think that's the highest grade he had.
yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of tough card because it's a set, I believe, of 10. And I think Mark Hoyle had bought the set that it came with it.
Uh-huh.
because I think he had the other cards, but I think it was a set of 10, and it was all different type of sports.
Right. So there's a couple of team cards on the top there. Are those the 51 tops team cards?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
There's the dated and then the undated. Um, the undated was I think it was the undated was a little bit difficult to find.
Uh-huh.
Um, and those took me a little while. Those are both low grades because they're all beat up. So, maybe eventually I'll upgrade those, but they're also tough to come by.
And then the column on the far left, are those three different exhibit cards?
Yeah, so the one on the left is the 39, I think it's like 39 to 55 exhibit card, or 46.
46, yeah.
Um and
Right.
that one, and then you have the other this is the version that has the number 9 showing.
Right. Right.
This is the not showing. So, but
Yep.
this one is difficult to find.
Yeah.
Um,
I
the
don't know
other
if I've ever
one,
seen one in person.
yeah, those are really tough to come by. I bought that raw and then graded it. Now, this one is the 53 Canadian, um, which there are two versions. Um, there is a green tint and then there's a purple tint. I think they call it red tint, um, but it is labeled purple tint.
Yeah.
The green I've seen two times pop up, and I lost out on one, and the other one I just didn't get it at that time as well.
So there's a Ted Williams card that you don't have. I think we're just going to have to stop the recording here right now.
Yeah, I know. There's actually a couple that I'm really struggling to get, and there's one. Well, the Grail is the Goudey, the 39 Goudey.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll get to that
So
because I know we had communication with that with a gentleman who ended up, I guess, putting it in an REA auction or something, and it went for like 12 grand or something like that. Anyway, so there's the Bond bread, and then there's a card that has eluded me for years. Is the 4849 leaf there, which is a what's the that's a PSA.
2.5.
Yeah, I've been priced out of that card a bunch of times. Even not even 2.5. It's like ones. It's
Yeah,
just
I actually had I had a Beckett 4.5 that I had bought um, in 2017, 2018. And, I have, if anybody knows me and as well as you, Dan, when I'm at shows, I kind of look cards over a lot. And then I go and buy if I think I want to add it to the PC, but I'm very particular. And the
yep.
Beckett one had a little bit of a miscut on back. Now Beckett doesn't grade it like that; they just grade it on the front, and it was a beautiful 4.5. So I ended up selling that, and I ended up getting a couple other cards, including this, PSA 2.5.
So in 1950, Ted agrees to go to Bowman for 2 years. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a 50 Bowman and a 51.
Yep.
And they're both there. It's the same exact photo, except like Bowman did from 50 to 51. It's one of my pet peeves with the 51 set is that they just reuse too many photos.
Yeah.
Um, so there's the two there. There's a Wheaties. We'll talk about Wheaties a little later. And then you get into the 54 is there. You got the 54 like this guy. What is yours a 4?
No, mine's a 3. Um,
This I
and I'm
told you
actually,
off camera is a bit of a generous 4. Um,
it's
so
a, where'd I put it? It's one card that I actually am disappointed. I bought it raw at the Philly show,
I was
uh,
there. I was literally
and
watching,
yeah,
looking at the corners with your with I guess I don't know. Did you have a loop or something? You were looking at the
yeah,
corners really closely with a loop. I think I was there for that.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, I
and
thought it was a 4.
I didn't. I agree with you. When I was looking at it at the same time, literally at the same time, and I know you paid a good amount for it.
Hmm.
Um, I thought even it could have done better than that. And I was basing it on having I actually had this card at the time, and
Yep.
this is off center. It's almost in a way almost miscut at the bottom because the top border is so much. The back is super clean and pretty good, but the corners are a little weak. So I think this is probably graded by SGC now as like a 2.5. And I definitely remember yours getting a little bit of a wasn't I don't know. Have you thought about resubmitting it?
I haven't. I did initially. I've also thought about selling this and then upgrading to a 4 or 5, depending
Right.
on um, if I could find one. But
Because
I'm going to keep.
SGC is really grading fairly these days, and I've done a couple of reveals on this show, and I'll do another one in a couple of weeks when my latest sub comes in. Their grades have been very very fair, and I think if you put that card into SGC now, you could go 4.5, but I know you're BSA guy, but so we'll see.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It was, and the dealer thought it was a 4 too. So I mean, of course, he was
yeah,
selling it to me. But
well, this is a 9. No, so you got the other one, the Flying Hot Dogs. I can never remember the name of the
the
card.
Wilson Franks,
Wilson Franks, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
one of my favorite subsets ever, and I completed the whole set, which was
it's just about to say,
20 cards.
I
This
remember
is
going to shows and sending you photographs of cards
yeah.
from
Oh
you know
yeah.
when you were trying to complete that, and I I I know the set is expensive, and I know you went high grade or higher grade, and I think you started with Ted, right?
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have started the set if I didn't have the Ted Williams, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah,
Because Ted is the tough one of the tougher ones to get. Now he isn't one of the tougher ones. Some of them are, like Johnny Growth is really tough to find. And Ray Jablansky, those were the tough ones to find. The Teds pop up, but the problem is the cost.
yeah, yeah.
PSA 1, you're probably in the 2,500 to 3,000 range. PSA 2, you're in the 6,000 range.
Right.
And actually, the story is when I was at the 2018 National in Cleveland. I was walking around and I came upon an older gentleman that had a showcase, and I saw it in there, and I was like, "What is that card?" And he explained it was the Wilson Franks. It had come in hot dog packages, so you'll see a lot of them that are stained.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to find them in really good condition. I've seen a couple 5s. I think I've seen a 6 before. But mine has the top corner missing. But I did get lucky with buying it on eBay. I had been searching for that card since 2018. So it'd probably been 3.5, 4 years looking for this card. And it was a seller that was selling like a whole bunch of other things. And this was the only card, and it was raw. And I thought, well, eBay is going to let me return it if it's not real. So I got it, and I'm like, oh, I think this is real. So let me send it to PSA to confirm. And PSA sent it back as a 1. So it's missing a corner. The
Yeah.
corner is kind of but and this is a card I will like to upgrade, but I don't have
It,
much into the card, so it's a really it's a really good purchase by me.
it's a nice card too. I mean,
Hmm.
one of my pet peeves about Ted cards, Bowman doing the same photograph from 50 to 51, and then Tops with 55 and 56. It's not the same card, but they're very similar looking cards. That particular card, and they reuse that same Ted like swinging and the side like the same portrait like multiple times. Tops did. In fact, I think it's the same portrait on the 54, the yellow one from the 54 cards. It's the same portrait of Ted. But that Wilson Franks card, it's like a swing you never see. So, and it's
Yeah,
just I don't know. Other than the flying hot dogs, which I always get a kick out of,
yeah,
it's a great card. And then in the center there, that looks like a Goudey premium.
It's the
Oh,
worldwide gum.
oh, it's a worldwide gum. Okay, what
So
year is
yeah,
that?
it's the 39 rookie
Right.
Canadian version.
Okay.
Um, that I need the Goudey in that. That's Mark Hoyle, and ever since I met Mark, we've been talking about getting the Goudey, even splitting, buying it together and splitting it and sending it to each other. Um, but this one had come up in the classic auctions out of Canada.
Hmm.
Uh, I had lost out on one, which was a PSA 1, probably 6 months before that. And then this one popped up. I really wasn't even looking for it. And actually, I believe it was Lucas, Red Collector on
Right.
Twitter, had sent it to me and said, "Hey, did you see this?" And I was like, "No." And the interesting thing is, I had just sold a couple of my sets that I had built, so I could purchase this. Now it's a 1.5. It's actually a really beautiful. It's the same version as the Goudey. It's just it's a big slab,
Right.
um, and it's just got a crease along there. But because the sepia the look,
Right.
it's really tough to pick up. So it's a beautiful 1.5. That pop is 9,
Wow.
and yeah, those are tough to come by. And like even if you go on, like I have on PSA the registration of my TED cards. There's not many of the top guys that even have that card. Now they have the Goudey,
Was it a
but
premium, like you had to mail away for it kind of card?
mhm, mhm.
Okay. Because those are always going to be rarer because what kids have the gumption to go ahead and to collect
Right,
everything and then do the mail
right,
away.
right. I
I
think
actually have, so there was a collection that came to my attention through my music circles. A music friend of mine is friends with the guy who had the grandfather collection. I think I know that you know who I'm talking about.
yep.
And he had a bunch of those 39 premiums. His grandfather had collected them. And they were absolutely gorgeous cards, except for a tiny little bit of tape at the top. And I know he was extremely disappointed. He sent a lot of them into grade. He was extremely disappointed in the grades that came back. And I think the TED came back as a 2, but it was an absolutely gorgeous 2. And I know there was some discussion between you and he about potentially um, cutting a deal for it, but I think the numbers were just not there.
Mhm,
And like I said before, I know he sent it to, I think, was it REA or some other auction house, and it sold for 12 grand because
mhm.
there are other Ted Williams collectors out there who can
Yeah.
afford to spend 12 grand on one card. I, however, got the Joe Cronin from that collection, which is very similar. I think it's a 2. It's
And actually,
back there. Yeah.
I think he sent it. I think he sold it through a private
Okay.
customer. I think, yeah, I think he sold it through a private one. But yeah, I remember you had purchased one at the same
Yeah.
time.
I purchased the Cronin. I don't remember what I paid for it, but it wasn't 12 grand.
Yeah, no. Well, it's interesting is
Yeah.
there will be, 6 months goes by and you won't see any Goudeys posted, or a
Yeah.
year or two. I
Yeah.
probably have seen in the last 5 years, I've probably seen less than 5 posted, on eBay or through auction houses. However, the last couple auctions, and even there's one on eBay right now, I've seen 3 in the past like month.
Oh, okay.
There's a PSA 3 on eBay right now for 19.5.
Oh,
Yeah, Mark Hoyle had sent it to me, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, I'll
well, I'm
have to
glad you
wait.
mentioned Mark because next week's show is Mark and Mark. It's Mark
Okay.
Armour and Mark Hoyle, and
Yep.
it's my first double. Well, not really my first double guest because I had the Hank Aaron was Tyrus and Matt, um, father and son,
Yep.
but it's the Cronin show, so I'm going to actually be showing off that card, which again, like the other one, is a 2, not because it's not an incredibly great card, but because it has like a little bit of tape on the top, which saved me tons of money.
Yeah.
So back to Ted. Is that a Perez Steel on the far right in the middle?
Yeah, and it's a press steel autograph.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yep.
And then I see. Well, we'll get to it later. There's the Fleer pack. Then you got some team cards, and there's the Ted 58 Ted, the 58 All Star. And then is that a scoop? There are a couple of scoops cards near the bottom there.
Yeah, there's two of those. They're the 61s, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think they're the 61s.
and
There's a
then
60, there is a 60 and a 61, and I don't see in those pictures that I have the 61s or the 60s, but I have, yeah, I have two of those.
oh,
Those are
okay.
the
Oh, those are
larger
the
ones.
larger ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. I'm not even sure what year it is, but I have the Spawn scoops for his no hitter. I guess that's 60.
It's
It's a
there's
regular size card,
yeah.
and then next to that, I know is an expensive card is the retired Venezuelan. Right? Is that what
Mhm.
that is?
Yeah, it is. That that was other that and the propagandists has been they're really tough to find.
Oh yeah,
Um, Mark and I had talked about letting each other know whenever we saw one.
right.
Um, and a couple of years, probably in 2001, one had popped up on eBay. Really wasn't something I was looking for at that time, so I let Mark know, and Mark ended up winning that Ted. Going a few months after, I found that in an auction, and it's a PSA 3, which is really tough to find in
Yep,
that
yep,
condition,
yep.
similar to the propagandists.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
like paper, also, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
and I got it somewhere around here. Um,
yeah, that's nice.
yeah, this is definitely a really nice car. I mean, it's an old PSA 3. It's probably a 2 now, but I'll keep it as
Right.
the 3. Uh,
Yes. Well,
but
you
that
can get.
one,
I think you can do a reslab, right?
yeah, you can.
When they don't regrade it, they just give you the old grade, which is
Hmm.
what I've been doing with a lot of my SGC stuff. All right, so there's I see the red man on the far left, and there's a couple buttons. Anything else in this before we move on to the next slide? Anything else in here you think you might want to show us or talk about?
Well, what's interesting is my card that I've had the longest is the 92 Upper Deck autograph down there that's slabbed.
Oh, okay.
I have had that since 2013, I think.
Uh huh.
And it's if anyone collected, in the 90s, these were the chase cards, and in the junk wax era, you can never find them. I mean, it's or pull them. I'm sorry. They're out there now to be bought, but the Ted runs you low end of 800, to $1,500. I ended up buying two more right next to that at the last year or this year's national, this past year's.
A show that I did not get to.
Nope, you missed it.
Well, I missed it for a good reason. Uh, my wife booked our Hawaii trip, so I was
Yeah, I'm
able.
going. I'm going to Hawaii in 3 weeks.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll talk about your Hawaii off camera. Now we got to have our listeners and viewers um, talk about baseball cards. And here's two cards, and I know the reason why you have two of these, but I'll let you tell the story. And I remember when you bought it. I think I was maybe the first person to see it other than you.
Yep.
The 39 Ted.
Yeah. So the 39 play ball Ted is considered his rookie card. That was in packs. And I had set a goal of getting the one, which is on the PSA 4. And I ended up purchasing that on eBay 2018. So beginning of 2018. So we're almost gone up on 6 years I've had that card. Um, and funny thing is, I left work during my lunch hour to try to meet the mailman, knowing what time he would be there because I had to sign for it, and I just didn't want to go through all that problem of trying to sign it and everything. So,
Yep, yep, yep.
um, as you know, and a lot of people know, I'm very particular on centering, and a lot of those cards, the cutting was off center, and waited, and finally found the one I wanted. So the one, on the left, is just a beautiful 4, I think. Now it has some. The only really issue with it is it has some minor wrinkles on the back. I bet if I regraded that, I mean, the way PSA is, it's probably a 2.5, 3 now. So I
Hmm.
will keep as is. But you can see from the number, it's an old grade.
Yeah, not quite the oldest because they started to get the little PSA insignia there in the middle
Right.
before they started using the holograms. So that's like not oldest PSA, but it's an older one. But
Yep.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, look at the centering on that. I mean, it's you
It's
know,
tough to find in that.
yeah, and then so I know the one on the right, it's a 2. It's a pretty good 2 actually.
Yeah, and you were with me when last year at the National when I bought that.
Yeah, that was
Well,
that.
I traded and cash, so I was
Yeah,
trade and cash. So the one on
yeah.
the
I saw
right,
it traded too.
yeah.
Broke my heart.
Um, so the one on the right, if you look closely enough, you'll see the borders are a little bit thicker around that.
Yep.
So I really didn't even know this until a couple of years ago when I was looking at was it TCB database and I saw two different variation or a variation, and I'm like, what's this variation? And so the variation is on the back. Ted was printed in where is it? Ted was printed in lowercase, as the other one was in uppercase.
Mm-hmm.
I have it here somewhere. Um, and I will see. You can see it's
That's the
lowercase,
lowercase. Yep.
and then here's the uppercase.
All right. Can't see that at all. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. There's the
My
uppercase.
reflection.
So,
Sorry.
did you do any like sort of research or figure out why there's those two cards are different cards? I mean, even there, I thought it was just the back with the lettering, but the front is actually a little bit different.
Yeah, the different borders. So what I've gathered from
I
my
think
research.
the tint is a little different, and also I think the one on the right, Ted, is a little bigger. I think it might be a little bit more zoomed in, tiny little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and you look at the borders, and
Yeah.
the borders, so it's a little bit of a tighter picture. But yeah, I mean, he does look a little bit different. So my research was, that they were selling these. Ted was in the first series, and the first series cards really weren't doing that well. So they inserted him into the second series. Well, the second series cards are printed differently.
Hmm.
So that's like the research that I was able to find on that. And because of that, Ted has 2 rookie cards in that year.
Are they different numbers?
No, they're same numbers. They're number 92 each.
Okay.
It's just that they had inserted this card into the second series.
Okay. Yeah. I echo your thoughts on centering for this set, by the way, because I think 3 or 4 of these going into SGC in my latest sub, that went to SGC this week. And they're beautiful cards. They're super sharp, but they're like a little bit off center. So thinking what the grade is going to be here. So now we got Ted has a 54, 55, 56, 57, and 58 tops cards. And they gave him the number one in the set in 57 and 58. And then Ted left and signed with another company, which is one of the great mistakes of card collecting, in my mind, to not
Yeah,
have
it was.
a 59 tops Ted Williams or a 60 top. The 60 would be amazing, because there would be a photo of him swinging and then another. It would just it breaks my heart
Oh
that he
yeah.
went with these guys. So what do we have here?
So what we have here is I didn't show my set, but I have the complete set of the Fleer Ted Williams cards. So Fleer put out um, an 80 card set of Ted Williams. All his cards, and there's different people. It shows Ted fishing, shows him with a big, big fish, shows him with Babe Ruth. And there's an 80 card set, which, I collected over the years, because the centering, I took my time. But what we have here is one of the hardest cards of Ted to get. This is the number 68 with was Bucky Harris. And he this is in a PSA 4.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was they printed this card out, but they didn't realize that Bucky Harris had a Topps contract.
Oh,
Was it Bowman or Topps? Topps, I think. So they pulled this card early on, so you don't really see it in a lot of the packs. So that card, I mean, a lot of times is worth more than the whole set.
right.
If you buy it individually. And then I got lucky buying one of the unopened packs of the Fleer. Those don't really pop up. I know Mark and I have talked, and I know he doesn't have one, but he and I had talked, and it was at that time where I'm like, oh, I see this, I'm going to buy this. That's a PSA 6 in the pack. I'm lucky I bought it before COVID because it's probably three to four times what I paid for it.
Yep.
Next to that is the empty pack, and the empty pack is just one of those packs that is just kind of flattened out and everything, and those pop up from time to time. It's kind of tough. A lot of them are ripped because as we all know, when we are opening packs, you just rip them.
Yep.
And then I think what kind of the grail of that group is the box, the Ted Williams Fleer box. Those rarely ever show up. That was I had got that on eBay, but I had waited to see if the guy was going to lower the price.
Oh,
And it was a little tough. I did buy that. I think it was about 2 years ago.
it's in great shape.
Yeah, it's definitely in really good shape. If you want to,
Yeah. Let's see this guy. Oh, it's in the plastic still.
yeah. I have it in plastic,
Oh, okay. All right.
but I
Yeah,
mean,
I guess it's empty, so it would have to
yeah,
have not been in
yeah,
plastic.
yeah. But a lot of when I collect some of the old vintage Topps display boxes,
Uh-huh.
and with a lot of them, they're either were torn apart, were written on, and this one was not. In the last, I would say, 8 years, I've probably seen 5 pop up.
Wow.
They just are very rare. Now, one just was in the Leland's auction. They had the box and a couple of packs. Now the packs were open, but they weren't searched, is what they said. I just let that go. I think it went around. I think it was 5 packs and the box. I think it was like $2,800 it went for.
Right.
But yeah, the box is really tough to find. There is a test issue that's been on eBay for over a year, and he just wants way too much money for it. But I'm good with
Yeah.
that. So
Let him sit a little bit, right?
yeah.
All right. So I said we were going to talk about Wheaties when we were looking. You do have the slab Wheaties, but this is the complete box, right?
Yes. Yeah, and actually that card right there is cut out a lot. And you'll see that graded. I'll never understand how some of the cutouts are anything but authentic. Because I have a couple of the Wheaties that are, a PSA 5 and an HTC 4 that were cut out.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're rounded corners and sometimes they're straight. But yeah,
Right.
this is the complete box. This is the box, and actually, that the box isn't really um, that big at all. It's
Oh, okay.
I mean,
So
it's not. I mean, it's probably
two servings.
yeah, yeah. It's not. Yeah, it was one of the like the little small ones,
Yeah, yeah,
that like
yeah.
you would buy in a group,
Yep, yep,
Um,
yep.
but yeah, there's I got that probably about 6 months ago, I think maybe 8 months ago. It was one of the ones I had been looking for a while, and they don't pop up as well.
Yeah, I've never seen one until you showed me this picture. So yeah, it's a heck of a piece. Let me say that. You don't
And to
see
find it in
complete
that
boxes
condition is really tough
of
too,
anything. You don't see complete boxes of, you
right?
know. And I know you pay up for those. And this I think is our last item. Is
Yeah,
this the
that's
one from
go ahead.
the TED Museum?
No, I actually, unfortunately, I have left that at my parents' house. When I was, there's a couple pieces I left because I was packing everything, and that was one of the last things. So the museum piece is still at my parents' house. But this is a pennant that they made three of players. There's a Tony C, which I can't remember. I don't think Mark Hoyle has one. Him and I had talked about it.
Well, we
Um,
only see show last week, so we'll
yeah, and
have to go
I
back
don't
and
think he has that one because we had talked about it. So there's a Tony
yeah,
C, a Ted Williams, and a Carl Yastrzemski.
right.
Um, and this Ted Williams, so I have the Yaz as well. I'm waiting for the Tony C, but the Ted here I bought at Phil Casanelli in Saugus. He's got a card shop, and I had walked in
Mhm.
there, and he had just bought a Ted collection, and I bought a number of pieces from him, but this was one of the ones I was after. Now my just how to find a way to display it, um, and
When were these produced?
I think it was in the '60s,
Okay,
late '60s. Um, because there's the Tony C, the Yaz, and the Ted. It might have
right,
been early '70s, but it was in definitely within that time period.
right.
Uh,
Well,
the regular size pennants, but yeah,
yeah,
there's only three of them, and the Tony C doesn't really pop up either.
right.
You'll never
Um,
really see these.
so we haven't seen other than the Perez Steel, much in the way of TED autographs. What do you have for TED autographs?
So I have three of the Upper Deck Heroes autographs. I have the Perez Steel. I have a signed baseball,
Hmm.
which I didn't bring out at this time. And I have a 16 by 20 of Ted, kind of like a younger picture of him that's framed up. So I have like five of them, I think.
Awesome.
Six. Yeah. And I mean, he signed so much. Now there is a lot of debate about, were some of them authentic because they thought that his son was signing some. Um,
Yeah, John Henry kind of took over his
yeah,
TED like memorabilia stuff later on in his
right.
life.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I met a guy at a Boston show. We were just in line waiting to get in, and this guy was showing me pictures, and he ended up going and meeting Ted down in Florida, and went to his house, and he
Wow.
had some action photos of Ted that I forget the connection, but the guy had a connection to Ted,
Oh,
and he's like, I went into the house, and he's like, Ted's just sitting there signing away. He said, there's not many that are fake autographs. He's like, yeah, there's definitely that are. He's like, but he's like, if you ever come across one, and just let me know. He's like, I kind of know. He's like, but I walked around the house, I saw what was there, and they had signed a lot of autographs. Now, I've been after a bat every once in a while, so we'll see if that's probably the next autograph that's not a card.
So you're going to have to help me get the Leaf card, and I think, and then at some point we're going to have to, you're going to have to be my consultant on the play ball, because I got to get one of the play balls cards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's my next. That's on my want list for Ted. But anyway, my friend, you have an awesome collection. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while,
Yep.
and thanks for coming on the show and showing us. Let me pull up the. Where is it? There it is. The money shot.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
I
next
love
time I
these.
see you, there's some additions to that. So
Okay, but anyway, just wanted to say thanks for coming on for and good to see you're all settled in Charlotte, and hope to see you soon. I know I missed you at the Philly show this time around last weekend, but pretty soon. Anyway, viewers, next week, as I said, we're going to have Mark Hoyle is back again. He was on the Tony C. He's going to be on the Joe Cronin show, and Mark Armour, who wrote the book. We're going to actually have the book right over here. He wrote the Joe Cronin book, so the two gentlemen will be on to blow your mind on their knowledge of Joe Cronin, and of course, we'll be showing off all sorts of cards and memorabilia and stuff. But anyway, thank you, Matt. Thanks, viewers. We will see you next week.
see you, Dan. Thank you.